Hey, what's going on YouTube? Welcome to my unboxing of the Aimpoint Pro Patrol Rifle Optic. I've been an EOTech fan ever since I got into shooting, and this is my first Aimpoint product, so I'm very excited to be conducting this review. Let's get started. When you first open the box, you see a diagram that's labeled with components of the Aimpoint. You get the manual. You get some mounting tools and some replacement screws. And you get a sticker that you can put on your optic that tells you when you put on your battery, and it'll remind you when to change your battery. And finally, you get the optic itself that comes with the lens cap already on, and you get the battery. The front lens, as you can see here, is red tinted, and putting in the battery involves unscrewing this cap. This is losable, apparently. Not tied down. I'm gonna put this in and screw this back on. Reinstall, just keep turning this dial until you have the dot at your preferred level of brightness. This is maximum. And you won't have to turn off your Aimpoints again until you change out the batteries, which will probably be in 3 years or so, because Aimpoint's claim to fame is the Advanced Circuitry Emission Technology, or whatever ACET stands for, which is very efficient battery consumption, so you can leave your sights always on. Hence, Patrol Rifle Optic for officers that have their rifles in the back of their car. They just pick it up and they're ready to go. They don't have to fumble with anything before using their firearm. So before I talk about the technical specifications of the Aimpoint PRO, I want to talk about Aimpoint as a company. Aimpoint is a Swedish company founded in 1975, if I recall correctly. Their American headquarters is located in Chantilly, Virginia. The concept of electronic reflex sights has been around since the 1900s, the early 1900s, and their first use was on aircraft. You didn't see reflex sights on small arms weaponry until about 1945, but reflex sights still didn't become super mainstream until Aimpoint came around in the 1970s, and their products were really popular in the civilian and the military market, with the military adopting the Aimpoint Comp M2, I think, and it was designated the M68 Close Combat Optic. The Aimpoint PRO that I have was invented in 2001, if I'm recalling correctly, and the advanced circuitry technology that allows for insanely long run times came out in 2005. And this optic is just super rugged, ruggedized aircraft grade aluminum housing, very hefty mount, and I'm going to show you the mounting of the optic on firearm real quick. There you go. It's unloaded. Nothing's chambered. I'm going to take off the EOTech 553 with the arms levers. There you go. Okay. Aimpoint goes on to any Picatinny rail. I'm going to have it all completely on the receiver. Okay. And you just tighten it down until you hear 2 clicks, and you'll be at the correct torque setting. 1 click, 2 clicks. That's all you need, and the sight is mounted. So let's give you a good view of the aim down sight with the front sight post. There you go. The dot size of my model is 2 MOA, 2 minute of angle, which means it'll cover a 2-inch circle at 100 yards. And you adjust the windage and elevation, the red dot, by using these knobs on the top and side of the optic respectively. Mounted, this just has to be zeroed, but since I have my iron sights set to co-witness, I just have to dial in the red dots to align with the front sight of my iron sights, and should be ready for work. The sight comes with a riser pre-installed that you can remove by removing these two screws and installing the shorter ones that comes with the mounting accessories, so you can get lower to the bore on something like a shotgun, but the standard mount height is in absolute co-witness with the AR height sights. So what is the difference between an Aimpoint and an EOTech? Well, let's first start with the similarities. They're both battery powered, meaning they aren't passively illuminated like the tritium and fiber optic illuminated Trijicon sights, but they are also both parallax free, meaning that you could be looking at the sight with any head position. You could have different cheek welds, you could be really up close to the optic or farther away, and the dot will remain the same place on the target. This is not the best example. The best example of how parallax free these optics are is if we were looking out into a field, looking out 100 yards away, but looking out an inch at the table isn't going to be, the best indication of how consistent these sights are. But past 50 yards or so, you will be completely parallax free. You can look at the sight from any angle and the dots is going to remain at the same place. Both of these sights are also designed to be used with both eyes open, and what's really cool is you could have the front lens completely closed and it still projects onto the same place. Comparing the EOTech 553 to the Aimpoint PRO isn't such a fair comparison because this is one of the higher end EOTech models. This compared with the EOTech EXP S30 are some of the best models that EOTech offers. The more appropriate comparison to make to the Aimpoint Pro would be an EOTech 512. I no longer have an EOTech 512, but I did a review on it a while ago, so you can watch the EOTech 512 review to look at a more level playing field of an Aimpoint compared to an EOTech optic. But the most premium model of Aimpoint available now would be an Aimpoint Micro, which weighs with the mount not even 6 ounces, and that optic is a game changer. But the Aimpoint Pro is the second entry-level model that Aimpoint offers. The other entry-level model that Aimpoint offers is the Aimpoint Carbine optic, which only has about 1 year constant on battery life. The Aimpoint Pro with the mount and the caps weighs 12.6 ounces, and the EOTech 553 with just the optic is 13.1 ounces. The Aimpoint 512 with the AA batteries, I think, weighs 11.6 ounces or something like that. Don't quote me on that. But as I've mentioned earlier, the most premium model Aimpoint right now, the Aimpoint Micro, is where weight savings really kicks in, with the sight only weighing about 6 ounces. Another super obvious difference between these two optics is the type of batteries they take. The EOTech models either take one CR123A battery that is mounted transverse to the optic, like in the EXP line of EOTech optics, or they take two CR123A batteries, like in the EOTech 553 model, and on the other one I have, it's the EOTech 516. But the Aimpoint takes the small nubby kind of battery, I forgot what it's called, but the reason that the EOTechs have to take such heavy batteries that adds to the weight of the optic is that it uses a unique method of projecting its reticle. It uses transmission holography, and it's the only sight on the market that uses the holographic projected reticle. Let me see if I can get it to focus really well so you can get a better look, a non-fuzzy look at what the optic looks like. You've all played video games, you know what there you go. So the optic is a 65 MOA cross-haired circle with a 1 MOA center dot. The 1 MOA center dot is great to be used with a magnifier to make precision shots. So with the EOTech reticle, you not only have an X and Y axis of the reticle taking shape, you also have a Z axis in that the reticle is projected out I think it's either 50 or 100 yards in front of you, so it looks like the reticle is directly over the target. Whereas the type of LED technology found on the Aimpoint is very similar to the LED emitting technology first designed for small arms weaponry in the 1940s. It's been modified and upgraded a lot since then, but it's still just a simple LED projecting onto a curved mirror with a curved front objective. But this dot doesn't project out into space, so it is its own focal plane that's, wherever the optic is, but you still look at the target and focus on the target instead of focusing on the dot, but it doesn't blur out your vision of the target like looking through pistol sights or even rifle iron sights would, because you focus on your front sight when using iron sights. It doesn't blur out your focus of the target because the dot is so small and unobstructive. But the advantage of the simplicity of the LED technology allows for such long run times and the 30,000 hour battery life continuous use for 3 years. So if you have a home defense setup in mind, you can just pick up your rifle and you don't have to fumble with any switches. You're always ready to go. With the EOTech, they have an auto shutoff for 6 hours or 12 hours after putting them on. So if you press this, the low power, to turn on the optic, it'll shut off automatically after 6 hours. But if you turn on the optic by pressing the up arrow, it'll shut off after 12 hours. Also, there's night vision compatibility for the EOTech. And I think the first 2 or first 3 brightness settings of the Aimpoint are night vision settings. Now let's talk about the discussion of value. Actually, no, before that, I want to say something about the EOTech battery life. I've never had a problem with the runtime of the EOTech batteries. With the CR123A batteries and the runtime of 1200 hours. Oh wait, I still have it on night vision. There you go. With the runtime of the 1200 hours with 2 CR123A batteries, I've not had to change out the battery since I got this optic and used it on my Tavor, and it's currently mounted on my Colt Daniel Defense because I modeled this rifle based on the current SOCOM M4s. So the Aimpoint isn't going on this firearm. I do have another host weapon in mind for the Aimpoint, but the EOTech is going to stay on my Colt Daniel Defense. Where was I? Oh yeah, battery life. I've never had an issue with EOTech battery life. The auto shutoff does really well in making sure you don't waste batteries, and I've used the EOTech on my rifle for hours at a time and high settings in sunlight, and I haven't had to change it out in a year. So 1,000 hours is way good enough for range use and carbine classes, whatever type of enthusiast shooting you do. But for constant on patrol use, duty use, you have to remember to turn on your optic. And, that's not going to be a deal breaker for a lot of people, but for some guys who are insistent upon having a home defense or a patrol rifle ready to go with literally nothing to fumble with, you just charge it and you're ready to go, then the Aimpoint is definitely for you. EOTechs have a reputation for weighing a brick, but as I've just weighed the Aimpoint earlier in the video, the Aimpoint Pro model doesn't offer significant weight savings, if at all, over most EOTech models. The Aimpoint Micro, as I will never stop saying, is a game changer, but it's extremely, extremely expensive, and Primary Arms makes an Aimpoint clone that comes in under $150 when it's on sale. But since the technology powering the Aimpoints is the LED emission that projects it onto a focal plane right here versus out in space with the 3D projected reticle of the EOTech, anybody can make a reliable electronic optic similar to Aimpoint specifications. it's not exactly rocket surgery at this point, but EOTech does have exclusivity in the holographic projected reticle world. But you may like recall there are some sites out there that have like, you know, crosshair reticles, not smiley faces, that's from Call of Duty, but they might have reticles more detailed than just a regular red dot. Well, that is still LED projected, not laser projection. And the reticle, the crosshair reticle, is still on the same focal plane. Even though you would get 2 eyes open aiming, it's still not going to have the same easy on the eyes projected effect of the EOTech laser projected reticle. If you kind of follow what I'm saying, I don't think I explained that super well, like explain like I'm 5 kind of terms, but you guys probably understand what I'm saying. Even though another company might make an LED style reticle that looks like an EOTech, I think Holosun has an EOTech reticle copy. It's not going to feel the same way as an EOTech reticle. You're not going to get a sense of how cool the EOTech reticle works just from watching a YouTube video. My advice is to go to your local gun store and try out a few of the Aimpoint optics. Take a look at some of the things, especially long range out in space, and then you can really see the difference between how an Aimpoint reticle works and how an EOTech reticle works. So as for personal choice, it's really a love it, hate it type of thing. Some guys with astigmatism can't use Aimpoints because it'll look like it does right now. The camera isn't focused on the reticle, it's focused on the sight housing. But if you get, like, there you go, that's fuzzy. Okay, the camera just focused on the reticle. If you have astigmatism, the reticle is not going to look like that. The reticle is going to look more like, let me get the camera to unfocus. Reticle is going to look more like that with the blurriness that you can't even make out the crosshair ridges. But you will find a lot more success with the 2 MOA dots of the Aimpoints. Again, it's really love it, hate it with the reticle. You really can't get a sense of which you would like just from a video. You have to try them out in person. If you have a friend that owns an Aimpoint, ask them to shoot their rifle a few times, or ask them to shoot their rifle with an EOTech a few times to see which one you like. Another advantage of the EOTech is its unobstructive window. The targeting window on the EOTech is much bigger than the one on the Aimpoint, and you also, well, it seems bigger because you don't have all the obstructions. If you see the emitter, the LED emitter, you can see it right there, and it cuts into the scope view, and you also have the buttons and stuff to fight with when you're looking down the Aimpoint sight picture. So that is another thing to consider. The EOTech has a much less obstructive window than looking through an Aimpoint Pro sight picture, but I don't have an Aimpoint Micro on hand. The Aimpoint Micro, the battery compartment and the adjustment is over on the side, so it's even less obstructive. I have shot my friend Scar with an Aimpoint Micro. I said I would keep saying this earlier in the video, but the Aimpoint Micro is a game changer. You don't have to buy an Aimpoint Micro to get performance similar to an Aimpoint Micro. The primary arms microdot Aimpoint Micro Clone is a very good budget option that gives you 80% of the performance of an Aimpoint at a quarter of the price. But what else is there to say about these two awesome optics? But you really can't go wrong. There is a lot of personal preference at play when choosing Aimpoints or EOTechs. EOTechs are made in the United States, so for guys that want to support American companies, EOTech, that's another point for EOTech. Aimpoints are made in Sweden, and you might not like looking down a tube. You might like looking at a window. I mean, the EOTech with its window projected reticle, it's like looking through a HUD of a video game. There's no other way to describe it. I'm racking my brain trying to, describe it in terms that I can convey easily over a video, but there's just really no way to get a sense of how cool the EOTech reticle is and the technology behind an EOTech just by watching a video. So, go out and, try out some of your friends' guns that have these optics on them. But just know that EOTech is really one of a kind in the technology used to project its reticle. Aimpoint technology is tried and true. It's been perfected, and it's always ready to go, always on. Don't have to fumble with the switches before using your rifle. So home defense setouts with the Aimpoint, just pick up your rifle, you're ready to go as long as you charge it. So, I think I've covered pretty much all there is for the Aimpoint Pro versus an EOTech. Aimpoint Pro versus the EOTech 512 is the more appropriate option because the 512 EOTech and the Aimpoint Pro are around the similar price point. But in terms of value, do I think Aimpoints and EOTechs are worth the money? Yes, 100 times yes. That's why these optics are trusted by military and law enforcement agencies worldwide. The EOTech 553, the TAM model minimally, is the exact same EOTech used by US SOCOM. The EOTech EOXP S30 in tan is the same model used by US SOCOM. Aimpoint, it's numerous law enforcement agencies, literally uncountable, that have Aimpoints on their rifles. So you really can't go wrong with either of these. There's a lot of personal preference at play. Some guys might like the unobstructed dot reticle. Some guys might like the really elaborate projected onto the target style heads-up window of the EOTech. But I will say this though, Aimpoint does have a lot of competitors in the entry-level market. There's a lot of companies that can make really reliable red dot LED emission optics like the Primary Arms model, but EOTech is one of its kind. There is literally no other red dot sight on the market that uses the same technology behind EOTech. So I hope this video was informative. There is very little that I can say in a video that gives you a sense of the EOTech's technology versus the red dot. I can show you exactly the red dot tech here, and that's all there is to see with the red dot. But with an EOTech, you actually have to see this in person. I know I sound like a broken record. I've said this like 50 times this video, but you have to see the reticle in person to see whether it is for you or not. So thank you guys for watching this video. My name is David. Be sure to subscribe and do all the YouTube stuff, like this video, watch some of my other stuff. It helps out the channel. And, well, I'm going to shut up now. Bye.